Judah with Guns and Tactics magazine here at TriggerCon 2017. Walking by, I see the CMC booth, and they've got some new Glock Trigger. So I run a CMC trigger in my AR, and I love it. It's a very smooth, flat trigger. Charles here was telling me about the Glock Trigger you have. Can you tell me a little bit about what makes this Glock Trigger different in a market that's full of everybody making different Glock triggers?
Yeah, so pretty much what we've done here, we've actually, instead of doing a lot of polish work and all that stuff on the inside, we've actually kept everything all OEM. So it's all stock OEM Glock parts. So it's going to fit into any of your custom Glocks, all the way down to your bone stock Glocks. A lot of your LE guys are going to like that because there's nothing done to the inside. It's just changing the trigger shoe themselves. But what we've done here, instead of having a curve, we've made obviously our flat trigger, but by changing that geometry, we've done three major things with this. So what we've done is we've actually taken all the grit out of that trigger. We've also, so it's a very smooth trigger, taking all the grit from the standard Glock trigger by just changing the geometry. We've also given you a shorter reset. So on that reset, a little bit of slack, you got the pull, and then on that reset, because you're already on this side of that reset, you're already closer to it, so the reset's already a lot shorter. Again, there's no internal work done to it, just the trigger job on it. And also, just from that, changing the geometry, we've dropped that trigger down from 7 pounds from a stock Glock trigger down to about 5 pounds.
We've lost 2 pounds.
Geometry. Just with the geometry of the trigger.
Well, and when I felt it, I noticed the first thing, it has a very smooth takeout. Like you said, there's no grit from the stock Glock trigger. The reset is really clean, so it's a really short reset. I like that a lot. The other thing I really like about it is you incorporated the same geometry from your AR trigger with that little L-shaped boot, I guess, onto here. So I tend to have a lower trigger press, and I can actually rest my finger on the bottom of the trigger, and that's really comfortable.
Right, and a lot of people are raving around here with this is guys that have really big fingers, they have an issue with their fingers rubbing against the bottom of that trigger guard. With that hook, it stops that completely, and it doesn't allow your finger to go any lower than that hook. It also gives you a nice index point, so every time you put your finger on that trigger,
you're in the same spot, you're consistent every time.
It's also very nice and wide on it, so it allows you to get a really good finger placement on that trigger.
It is. That is definitely one of the nicest things about it. I like the comfort factor on it, and it's a smooth trigger, so just working dry fire on it, the take-up is really clean. The break is crisp, like you'd expect, but it's better than a stock Glock trigger. And you're saying it's all from geometry.
All the geometry of the trigger.
That's some math genius right there.
And because it is all OEM, if you later on want to make that even better, drop a spring kit in there, drop a connector. You know, if you want to do that, just going to make that trigger even better from there.
Last question I have for you is, a long time ago I was fooling around with Glocks and I was changing out parts, and I ended up with a very unreliable trigger. What's the reliability? I mean, it's OEM parts, so you'd think...
Exactly. It's extremely reliable because it is all OEM. We didn't want to go and do a bunch of polish work and cut work and, you know, different spring work and different connector work for that reason. Because we didn't want to risk any kind of reliability with it. So it's extremely reliable.
All right, and they work Gen 3, Gen 4?
Yeah, so it's just generation preference, so Gen 3, Gen 4. And then, of course, caliber.
Gotcha. Awesome. Charles, thanks so much.
Thank you.
You guys are doing great work here. Thanks for bringing a new trigger to the market. We'll see you around at the rest of TriggerCon 2017.